Let's take you back up to the Tappan Zee Bridge. Governor Cuomo is set to give us a briefing on what is the latest there in terms of the structural integrity. In particular, what happens next? Let's listen.
Who is the State Director of Operations, and Melissa DeRosa, who is heading up the communications operation. As people know, at about noon today, there was a crane accident. It was one of the 28 cranes that is installing pilings by using what they call a vibrating hammer. It was a new crane. It was a crane that had done much more significant heavy work. This was basically routine work, and there was a malfunction on the crane, and the crane boom collapsed into the what we call the old Tappan Zee Bridge, the existing Tappan Zee Bridge. We did inspections on the bridge. There is surface damage to one lane, which is the southernmost lane on the bridge. And it is what I would call significant damage. It's clearly visible. It's several feet. And there is also some structural damage to that lane underneath the bridge. So there's surface damage on the pavement. There's also structural damage below the bridge. That lane will require work before it is operational. As I mentioned earlier, there were 3 people who had very minor injuries. To the best of our information, and that is still correct, that the injuries were minor. The boom collapsed, and the damage is significant. To the crane is mangled, but it was about noon. Luckily, it wasn't in rush hour, and miraculously, no one hit the boom, and the boom didn't hit a car, and there were no injuries, which really, to me, is nothing short of a miracle. Because when you see the actual crane and the damage to the roadway, it really is nothing short of a miracle that nobody was hurt. Again, we brought in bridge inspectors, structural engineers to inspect the bridge. It's an old bridge. This is the bridge that was being replaced, and we wanted to make sure that it was safe before we allowed cars to go over it. All the cars had been removed from the bridge and both approaches. The question now is when the bridge becomes operational once again. Obviously, we all want the bridge. Pause. That is from someone who heard the bridge was out and decided to commute by helicopter, which I don't think is going to be necessary. The bridge is empty now. The queues are now empty. We will be reopening the bridge on this timetable. The 3 northbound lanes, just for your orientation, northbound is coming from Westchester to Rockland, headed upstate. Southbound, Rockland to Westchester, headed towards New York City. The 3 northbound lanes will be open within literally minutes. 5:15 is the estimated time for the 3 northbound lanes to open. That was the priority because the volume at this time of day is basically headed northbound. So those 3 northbound lanes will be open. The southbound lanes, which is where the damage occurred, 1 southbound lane will be open at about 7 o'clock this evening. 2 southbound lanes should be open at 8 o'clock this evening. We have to place plates on the roadway to make those roadways safe. There was some surface damage. Putting the plates on, moving the barriers will take some time. So southbound, 1 lane at 7, the 2nd lane at 8 o'clock. My personal recommendation is if you're going southbound, the volume is basically light at this time of day going southbound. I would still suggest an alternative route for this evening on the southbound traffic. George Washington Bridge, Kingston Bridge, Bear Mountain Bridge, etc. But northbound will have 3 lanes operational. By tomorrow morning's rush hour, which is then the reverse, where the southbound traffic is open, we expect to have that southernmost lane closed, but the other lanes open and operational. So at the end of the day, no one was hurt. The people who were on the bridge experienced the delay, and we apologize for that. There was a disruption on local traffic, but nobody got hurt, and that's what's most important. For the thrust of the rush hour this evening, the northbound lanes will be open. Tomorrow morning, all but one southbound lane will be open. So all in all, given the accident and given what it could have been, as I mentioned before, I'm going to say a special prayer because this was nothing short of a miracle, and we were very, very lucky that this is the consequence of what could have been a really, really terrible tragedy today. I want to thank the local responders who were nothing short of phenomenal. State police did a great job. The local police did a great job. I want to thank the Rockland Sheriff very much for their work. And I want to thank all the people who were on the bridge for their patience. It was a long 4 hours to wait on that bridge. I spoke to many of them. You could see the frustration in their face. But by and large, they were also understanding, and they saw what happened, and they saw the crane fell. And New Yorkers, unfortunately, are getting all too accustomed to dealing with crises. But I like to say when things are at their worst, that's when New Yorkers are at their best. And New Yorkers were at their best today, both the first responders and the commuters who were on the bridge, who showed incredible patience and some good humor about it at the end of the day. So I want to thank them. Any questions for myself or?
So what do you say to the drivers who might have real anxiety because you guys don't know how exactly this happened? That the concerns are going to happen again?
Well, let's remember what happened. Nothing happened with the bridge, right? It was a crane that was a new crane that had a malfunction. We will do an investigation and find out exactly what the problem was with the crane and why it happened, and we'll make sure it didn't happen again. But there are equipment failures, you know. The good news is it didn't affect the bridge. It had nothing to do with the bridge. It's not a bridge incident, it's a crane incident, right? So if you have to have anxiety, you should have crane anxiety and not bridge anxiety.
So do you think the other cranes until you can figure out?
Okay, so Governor Cuomo there giving us an update on the Tappan Zee Bridge situation. Good news. He said the southbound lanes are, well, let's start with the northbound lanes, really, because at this point, they are about to open momentarily. The northbound lanes, all 3 of them, going up to Rockland County. Heavy volume, late afternoon commute, that's a good thing. And then he said the southbound lanes, that's where most of the damage is. 2 lanes will be opened by 7 o'clock tonight and will remain that way as they look at a 3rd lane southbound that took the brunt of the damage. But really, the miracle that he talked about over and over, a crane's boom fell on the Tappan Zee Bridge at noon and nobody got seriously hurt.
No one was hurt.
That's just amazing.